Hello and welcome. This is going to be a really quick video just to show you a little bit more about using the local adjustment brush. Now we have a photo here and I've done all of my edits that I want to do with the sliders. So I've adjusted everything, I've applied lens correction, straightened my lines and all that good stuff. But say for example, there are still some things that need to be corrected. So some things that could be corrected with the local adjustment brush is if there are areas that are a little bit cooler or warmer in light temperatures. So for example, I might decide that this end of the couch feels a little bit cooler than this end. Or if there are some areas where you want to adjust the exposure or the tint or sharpness or anything, the haziness. So you're going to go to the local adjustment brush up here. And when you click there, you're going to see that it opens up this new set of sliders. And these are all of the adjustments that you can make with the brush. And if you have any brush presets, Grove Studio sells some in the shop. We have some architectural ones, but if you have any, it's going to be under this little pull down. These top ones are ones that come with Lightroom automatically, and then below that, down here is where you're going to start to see all of your own, any that you've uploaded into Lightroom. So you can use some of the presets, but you absolutely don't have to. You can manually make adjustments as needed. And then below those sliders, you're going to see the sliders for controlling the brush. And you're going to be able to control the size, the feathering, the flow, and the density. And there's this little checkbox here where I typically don't have it checked. I'm going to show you what it does in a minute, but that is for auto masking. And auto masking in Lightroom, it's not super accurate, so it's not something that I think is going to be used often, but it's a really good tool to just know about. Also in here, you can do two different brushes. So if you want to apply the effect, but you want to have one brush that's a little bit bigger and softer and one that's smaller and stronger, you can have different brushes and you can have different settings. Or if you want to have sort of two variations of your go-to preferences for brushes, you can do that here. You can also choose erase, and it's going to, when you brush on, it's actually going to erase what's underneath wherever you're brushing. So we're going to just leave it at A, and I'm just going to leave it here at what settings I originally had in here because this is just for demonstration purposes. And I went ahead and did some kind of extreme adjustments on the sliders. Obviously, you're going to do something probably a lot more subtle, but for the sake of this video, I put the temperature all really high up on the warm side and the tint really far on the left. I dropped the exposure down quite a bit and dropped the highlights. So it's going to give a really funky look to wherever I brush this on, but I want to make sure that you're seeing what it's doing. Now, when you hover over the photo, you're going to see the brush itself, and you're going to see the circle in the middle with the cross, and that's the epicenter of the brush. Then you're going to see the first line and then the outer line. The first and outer lines, that is where your feathering is happening. So if you take a look at what it looks like now, and let me show you if I adjust the feathering versus if I go, so you can see here on the side, it's a little bit tough to see. I'm trying to make it a little bit visible for you guys. You can see there that space between the two outer circles gets bigger as you increase the feathering. So if I make the brush bigger, let's see, just to make it clear for you guys. And then I'm going to adjust the feathering there. So what that does is it's the edge of your effect. How soft do you want it to fade away to nothing? Or do you want to apply an effect and have it be a really hard edge? So if I do the feathering to nothing and I say I want to apply that on the ceiling, then it's going to apply a really hard edge, right? Versus if I then do a new brush, leave everything the same, but I increase the feathering, and I do that here, you can see that the edges are much softer, right? So that effect just fades away to nothing in a much more gradual way. So let me go ahead and delete those two brushes, and you can select those little grab, the little nodes for the brush. So if you have one up here, let me do that again. You have one up here and you go to do a new brush. You can always go back and select the first brush and then press delete to get rid of it. Okay, so that is the feathering, and that is to delete them. Now you may have noticed that I did a brush here and then I went to create a new brush. Now the reason I did that is because if I have a brush here, and I'm going to do a little bit more coverage with this effect, and then I say, okay, now I want one that's going to make it brighter, not darker. If I'm still in this brush and you can see the node is selected, then any adjustments I make on the sliders are going to be applied to the current active brush. So if I want to make a new effect, then I have to make a new brush, right? So I go to new, you'll see that the node changes, so it's just a solid gray, and then I can do another one up here. When I do that, you'll see it reverts back to what the slider settings were before I made any adjustments. So when I was originally doing this brush, it had these settings that it now did. So it carries over what the origin settings were for the previous brush. So typically, if you're going to do a new brush, you click new, and then you make your adjustments. Say I want something very red. Then you start to paint that on. You make your adjustments first, and then you paint that new brush. So obviously this brush is really versatile. You can adjust a lot of things. You can adjust pretty much anything. And the beauty of it is that you can apply it to as much or as little of the photo as you'd like. Now the thing to be aware of with this one is that because it's freehand, it's not very exact. So it's not like when you're using a lasso tool or a pencil or even the magic wand in Photoshop. It's going to be very freehand and soft, even if you have that hard edge on it. So it's not ideal for using, for example, in the windows, if I wanted to bring down the exposure. So if I want to put it up here, it's really difficult to get a clean edge with these brushes. So this is really when you have an area that you want to fix something, but you don't need it to be a really precise selection. The last thing I want to show you is a quick example of masking. So here we have this kind of overblown deck area, and I'm going to go ahead and check the box for auto mask. And I'm going to check this box so that it shows me exactly where it's applying it. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of the blown out parts. And then I'm going to expand, and I'm going to just start. And you can already see it's not applying the effect, for example, to that side table that's inside the living room. It is deciding where the edges are for that effect based on where you first clicked when you applied that brush. So if I take this effect off, we're going to do a little bit more extreme there. There we go. You can see that it hasn't gone into the frame of the door or the table. Again, this is not a very exact tool, so this is one where there aren't going to be a lot of instances where it applies, but it's just a good one to know about. And if you want to know more about this tool, I did a whole video showing an example of where it would be really handy to use it for interiors, and I'm going to link that for you right here. So that is it. When you are ready to be done with your brushes, you can just press K, click Done down here, or you can click this icon again to get rid of it or to bring it up. And again, this is the local adjustment brush. And I hope this has been helpful. This is a really handy tool. I use it a lot for interiors, and I hope this has given you a new tool to work with. Thank you so much for sticking around. I'll see you next time.